we have been working on this new project of ours that we called Node.js extensions, and what it's supposed to do, it's supposed to provide a front-end asset pipeline, or actually several pipelines, as a reusable package and project, where under the hood we actually run some Node.js scripts. And we try to do it in a way that the consumer of this Node.js extensions project doesn't really have to know much about how it works, and doesn't really have to configure much or anything at all in the best case. And we also set out to make this available as a NuGet package, so that you can drop in a completely working but also configurable Node.js front-end pipeline, which means building linting SCSS files, linting JavaScript files, compiling them, minifying for SCSS files. We also have auto prefixing, which is nice, and source map generation, things like that. Well, probably many of those things that Gulp does in Orchid Core as well, just that we drop Gulp from the equation altogether, because Gulp actually officially Gulp 4 is not compatible with anything higher than Node.js 12. It does work on 14, but we had problems with upgrading to Node.js 16, which came out over a year ago, and now we have Node.js 18. So we decided that going forward we want to just drop Gulp from the whole pipeline and build the whole project just using npm scripts and some custom written Node.js scripts. So this diagram, I drew this in the meantime to show you that we can consume it with a simple project reference, which is what we do in our open source Orchid Core extensions solution, where we use projects from submodules. But it also works if you just add a NuGet reference to the project, and it works the same way. And we achieved that by copying the necessary parts of this project into the consuming project, into the Node modules folder, just like a general, a regular npm package, and from there, so independently, if that's from submodule inside your folder structure somewhere, or from the NuGet cache folder, we have a local copy in here, which we then link to using pnpm, and then as part of the project build process using MSBuild, we use the pnm build call, which then under the hood triggers all those pipelines like SCSS compilation, JavaScript compilation, minification, and thus. And we also have Markdown linting using both Markdown lint and text lint, actually. So there's quite a lot of rules that we enforce for our own good and for the good of others out there. And then the next piece of magic we have in here is that we add the compilates that we generate from those processes as embedded resources to the assembly being built, which means that you can actually keep all of your webroot files out of source control, because they will just be rebuilt on demand when you build your project. And the great thing is that the only thing that you need on your computer is a Node.js installation. Anything you don't need to install anything else for that. So for example, pnpm, we use it through the core pack tool. I don't know if people know that, but Node.js introduced that with version 16.9, where you can transparently use pnpm through Node.js, actually, which makes the whole pipeline less dependent on the environment where it runs. So that's another piece that we removed from the puzzle. And yeah, and we solved the problem that we had with the previous gulp extensions where we didn't quite get to the point where the generated files would actually end up in the assembly. So this is good because it allows us to publish, us or anybody else, allows us to publish, Orchid modules on NuGet while not committing any generated files to the repository, to any repository. So these things are just generated on build and then added to the assembly and the NuGet package. That's the high level part, and then if you will, I just show you just a few things in code, so I get a feeling of what the configuration system looks like, for example. So yes.
Too small.
Too small. Okay, thanks. That's better. Okay, so we chose to add just a configuration section in the package.json to avoid additional files that we would have to kind of copy or ask people to create and source control and things. So if you have a package.json in your project, which you are likely going to, well, you need to have actually, and if you don't have one, we'll actually even generate one for you. We have some, sensible defaults, which is the Orchid core convention of using assets scripts and assets styles folders like here in this project, but they can be overridden, as you can see here, for scripts and styles. So in this project, which is Node.js extension samples, that's small now, but you can see it here. I overrode those defaults, with some custom folder names here. And yeah, we will look for SCSS files or JavaScript files here, SCSS files here, and render them into those target folders. And then, yeah, I mentioned Markdown, but we also have asset copying, which is something that we do a lot in our modules, where we copy around some files from Node modules, for example, into the web root. Let that be Bootstrap or some other front-end library that you want to just consume as an npm package and then have in your web root folder. So you can configure that very closely actually to what the assets.json does in Orchid core. We named it sources and target, but it's the same as input and output. And we have a pattern here, so you can apply that to image files or whatever you want to, or JavaScript files or whatever. So that's the whole configuration system. And then we also have Markdown. I have a separate package.json here for Markdown. So Markdown can be enabled by providing a source folder, which can be any relative path to. Oh, this is nice actually, because the Markdown pipeline can actually run outside of the project as well, which makes sense if you have like a large solution of projects, and you can just do a single run of Markdown lint and text and over all the Markdown files. So you can go up here, or if you don't have a complex setup like we do here, you can just say, oh, Markdown my whole solution, like lint my whole solution, and we'll just find the folder where the solution file is located. The default is false, so Markdown is opt-in. That's just because it's maybe not the most common thing to do for your front-end modules. And we have great Visual Studio integration. So that's maybe the last thing I'm going to say. We have MSBuild formatted warnings and errors. So when I have a double, I'm adding a styling of offender here, a double new line. And for JavaScript, I'm adding a longer line. Then we have a hard limit at 150. So let me add 155 characters here. Visual Studio has ESLint built in, and it picks up our configuration. But let's ignore that this is squiggled right now and just build the project and just see what we get from MSBuild here, which will be a list of errors that contain clickable links to where the error actually came from. So we'll wait for the MSBuild here. PNPM build is being called right now, and we have the pipelines running, and 1, 2, 3, there we are. So we have max empty lines, it should be 1. We have max line length, should be 150 at most, and we can go and double click on those. Go right here, double click on this one, go right here and fix the error. And actually that was the second last thing I'm going to mention, because we also have, there's an npm package, a script runner extension from Mads Christensen that you can add to Visual Studio, and then you can actually run those scripts without building the project, just running front-end scripts. Having a watch script is nice if you do continuous development. Build and clean, also useful things. I think that's it for an introduction. Thank you.
Thank you. And in parallel, I was trying to remember package.json. No, it's something from Node.js. Or NPM.
Yes.
Is it? No, it's from NPM.
Well, yeah. Well, you usually put your npm packages in here in the dependencies node. Exactly.
And I remember then when we switched from a single package.json to multiple ones in each module.
Yeah, you don't have any, as you can see, there's no dependencies in here that concern the front-end pipeline, right? It's all inside of Node.js extensions. So that was the goal, that you don't have to worry about these things here.
So where was that before?
Well,
assets and everything, I don't remember. Where is that today?
Which assets?
The assets and...
Oh, the assets JSON file?
Yeah.
Oh, this is
it's assets.json. Okay.
That's what Orchard Core does. Well, we didn't replace that, right? So this is it's like a complement to that right now. This is for our own good right now, and we needed this to package our packages as NuGet packages. So that was the goal, and to replace the assets JSON and the gulp pipeline, would probably have to do a few more things. Like support TypeScript, which we don't yet, and I don't know. Yeah, but
so today in Orchard Core, when we have front-end assets, we have this assets.json file that defines inputs and outputs, how to process the inputs and what to generate.
Exactly.
And we have to run the gulp pipeline every time we do a change to one of these assets to rebuild all the assets that we want to store in the repository. Sometimes what's happening is that someone does a PR and then builds the assets, but someone else does another PR and also builds the assets, and there are conflicts. So these are the issues we have. With your solution, this is the generation of the target assets is done on build of the module.
That's correct.
And that's the main goal. And this way, so which means you don't have, I understand that you don't have to store the build assets, which I like.
And we don't have conflicts.
Yeah, there can't be any conflicts because, and they are generated on every build, which is fine, but at least we are sure that they are valid. So when we do a test or when
wouldn't that slow the build even more?
Obviously, it will slow the build. Yeah.
A lot.
It's only generated if the output files are older than the input files, right? So we do update checks as Visual Studio suggests, or MSBuild, to avoid unnecessary builds too. Yes.
Is there something is doing a hash check and no, there is no change, so we don't know.
Well, yeah, you have input and output on the MSBuild targets, so we use those to avoid building.
It will do it for you.
Yes.
Okay, interesting.
Well, we have some what are they called, like marker SAM files that we use. and with the stem files, we avoid duplicate work. But then the output files, well, of course, if you have a fresh clone, then you need to build everything. But then once you've built it, it's not going to be built again.
It would be interesting to have an idea of fresh, how much it adds to the pipeline. I don't think it might add too much. It's just text processing. Might be quick. I don't know.
Yeah, the initial build takes some time because you also have to pull the npm packages into the Node.js extensions.
And not for today, because today we don't do that. We just run it when we have a change. I see.
Yes. Usually you don't work on a clean checkout.
And people don't have it, because usually if they don't touch front-end stuff, they don't even have to install Node.js or run the Gulp pipeline. It's just nothing to do. Interesting. That's great. I like it. Good presentation. Good feature. Thank you.
Thank you too.